Welcome to Your Mac Life for Wednesday, January the 30th, the last Wednesday in January, second to last day in January. This is show number 12,203. I'm your host, Shawn King.
I'm Melissa King.
And thank you guys very much for joining us here this Wednesday evening. As always, we love getting emails from you guys. Send us emails to onair@yourmaclifeshow.com if you're tuned in live and you want to ask us or comment on something during the live version of the show, or on the archive, you can always send it to the same address, onair@yourmaclifeshow.com, or to Shawn@yourmaclifeshow.com. On tonight's show, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop at loopinsight.com. We're going to talk to Jim about all the obvious things. Apple's earnings. Apple made a metric buttload of money again, except they didn't make as much as they said they were going to last time around. Is that a bad thing? Apple's also making lots and lots of money on other things, too. So we'll talk about that with Jim. We'll also talk about Facebook, who...
FaceTime?
Oh, jeez.
Facebook.
No, Facebook.
Facebook?
First of all, Facebook, because Facebook did it again. They more privacy violations, more bad things that Facebook is doing, and it's almost gotten tiresome how often they get caught doing things they're freaking not supposed to be doing and things that they know they shouldn't be doing. We'll also talk about FaceTime. Apple had a... I can only call it an unfortunate bug with FaceTime. It's not the end of life thing that some folks seem to think. I don't know if it's an embarrassment to their privacy issues. I don't know if it's as big a deal as some seem to want to make it. But we'll talk to Jim about that, along with we're also going to have a review of the Mophie. Let me get the packaging. It's much prettier. Mophie Juice Pack Air from the nice folks at Mophie. Zag is the main company for Mophie, and it took me forever to figure out how to open this thing up until Melissa just pulled on this bit, and it came out. It's the battery pack for this particular one is for the iPhone 10, the iPhone X. I can never remember which way I'm supposed to say that. They've got them for, I think the first one I had for the iPhone 4 wireless battery pack for these. Sorry, this one's a wireless battery pack. It's kind of cool, which means that it will wirelessly charge itself and your iPhone. It's one of the cool features of that. We'll talk about that and more later on in the show. I also got the folks from hitcase.ca right here in Canada have sent us a Hitcase. I generally don't like reviewing cases because reviewing a case is freaking boring. It's a case. I like reviewing cases that do things like the battery case. Well, this Hit case, which looks like a regular everyday case, actually has a holder there, magnetic holder for a lens. Folks at Hit Case also make lenses for the iPhone, a wide-angle lens, a super wide-angle lens, and a macro lens. And I'm reviewing that. I'll review that in a couple of weeks. They're giving away a couple of copies of their cases. This is a nice soft case, but then they've got this hard, protective, waterproof case that also has a lens attachment to it. So we'll talk about that in a couple of weeks when I'm finished doing the review of that. And also in our starting point photography segment, we're going to talk about how to do boring street photography. Yeah, I want to teach people how to do boring shit. By learning what the boring bits are, you'll learn how to do them, and then you'll do better street photography. That's the theory behind this little segment, so hopefully it will work out. Our friends in the Midwest of America are freezing their tuchuses off.
Yes.
Have you heard about this?
A little bit.
This polar vortex, which what we call in Canada Wednesday.
Just a day.
Just a day in January. Now, granted, this is exceptionally cold, even for Canada. This is really, really freaking cold. Our friend Dave Dykestall. Is Dave in the IRC chat room yet? Dave, it looks like there's Dave. He posted this on Twitter. On Twitter today, I'm going to cover up my beautiful wife's face. It says minus 29 feels like minus 56.
It's just awful.
And someone asked me, is that Fahrenheit or Celsius? It doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. It's minus like two numbers.
Actually, at minus 40, it's the same, Celsius and Fahrenheit. But after about minus 25, it's a moot point. It's frickin' cold. It's insanely cold. Minus 56. What's the lowest temperature you ever had in Australia? in Newcastle.
Oh, growing up?
Yeah, you never got below 0 Celsius, did you?
Oh, never.
You never saw snow, did you?
Only when I went to the snow.
But, I mean, in Newcastle.
To the snowy mountains.
Yeah, to the mountains, yeah. But in Newcastle, what? Maybe 5 degrees would be...
Oh, no.
Well, 40
Okay,
Fahrenheit.
yeah.
Not even close, right?
Oh, God, no.
What did you feel like the first time you came to Canada in the wintertime and it was...
Well, no, for me it was Montreal, flying into Montreal.
Yeah.
And it was minus 40-something.
In Montreal?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
were you going to Montreal in the wintertime? Were you insane?
Because Shawn, my other Shawn, was flying me there. Like, he flew me there.
Tramp.
Shawn! Oh, my God.
Why were you going to Montreal in the wintertime, though? Period. Did you not know?
Because
Because I would have said, no. Let's
No.
wait till the summer.
No, because we did go down to Mexico, get attacked on the beach stuff. And then he flew me back. Oh, no, maybe that was from when I was in Buffalo. I don't know. I went from Christmas, crazy snowstorm and chicken wings in Buffalo. And then I flew to Montreal. So then yeah. And the French Canadians were in shorts and T-shirts.
Well, they're not well to begin with. French Canadians in general. There's a bunch of pictures that was posted online of how cold it is in various areas of the Midwest, Chicago, and those kinds of places. The sub-zero temperature. That's Lake Michigan in Chicago. Just nuts. Can you imagine? Look at the ice on these places.
They're going to have to watch out after it's all over with, won't they, with the flooding?
I don't think it'd be that bad. This is familiar. This is how we would dress in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
In the wintertime.
Did your boogers and your nose hairs ever freeze? I remember that distinctly, that uncomfortable feeling when you're in these cold temperatures.
Yeah.
Oh, someone's on a bike. Good Lord.
This guy's on a bike.
Okay.
I mean, it's got to be hard to ride a bike just in the snow on the physical conditions of the road.
Yeah.
But with the wind hitting you in the face like that, that's just nuts. I don't care how much
I guess he doesn't want to
to
drive, right?
Well, there's that too, but I mean, in that case, you just don't go. Just whatever it is that you're going, just
don't go
just
there.
Don't go there. That just seems to me to make more sense. But while I was doing checking this out, I thought this was the funniest story ever. Apparently, Kentucky's governor got in trouble because it was minus 17 Celsius, which is
That's cold,
tens.
but
It's cold. Yeah, it's cold. Definitely cold.
Yeah.
But he said that because they were canceling school, that he said Kentucky's governor joked we're too soft on kids when they close school for cold weather. Is he right? According to globalnews.ca. So reading the story, I discovered something I did not know. That frigid temperatures in Canada, in Canadian cities like Winnipeg, where the current deep freeze is beating out most of the world, including outer space. Winnipeg, for those folks who don't know in America, is actually nicknamed Winterpeg. It's just viciously, evilly cold. The temperatures aren't keeping kids from going to school. And in places like Regina, also under an extreme cold warning, public school closings are very rare. Mm-hmm. That's because, per the district's online examiner, severe weather is just a way of life in Saskatchewan.
Yeah. You can't close the schools for severe weather. They'd never be open.
Well, the district reviews its regulations every year. It's been a while since they've changed. The regulations in Winnipeg and Regina are this. Per current protocol, school transportation is canceled if the wind chill reaches minus 45.
That's when the kids get to not go to school.
When it's minus 45. How tough are prairie kids?
Oh, they're tough folk.
Can you imagine? No, Johnny, it's minus 40. You're still going to school.
Minus 43. You got to go.
Crap. I mean, I think the worst I've had on a regular basis when I was a kid in Nova Scotia, minus 20 wasn't unusual, but it was very, 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 very cold. School wasn't canceled, all the roads were clear. But you didn't like going to school. But that would be rare to get to minus 20. Minus 10 wasn't unusual. Minus 5 was balmy. If it was sunny and minus 5, you could get by wearing just a light overcoat.
Oh,
and
yeah.
your jeans.
Yeah.
Sneakers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If the roads have been plowed and were clear. Minus 20 was probably the maximum sustained that I'd ever had in Nova Scotia. I experienced minus -50 with a wind chill in Ottawa one year when we went skating on the Rideau Canal, which is, by the way, beautiful, a really cool experience. The Rideau Canal in Ottawa freezes solid for 30 miles. It's the world's longest skating rink. And it's so fun. You go there and there's people that are having picnics on the canal. There's all kinds of
Oh, it must be
pond
just
hockey games going on.
Love it.
Vendors will push their ice cream, their hot
their
dog
food.
carts, food carts on it, which is kind of, you skate along and stop for a hamburger hot dog. Kind of cool. Except it's -30.
Yeah.
It's a little bit insane. So people have barbecues there, and you just go over and stand next to someone's barbecue and and get warm. But that was the lowest I've ever physically been in, -50. When I was a kid, I remember a news report that was -75 in Newfoundland, and the police were literally arresting people who were outside because it was so dangerous that something was going to happen to you, and the police were going to have to come rescue your dumb ass. So police were just taking people off the roads and going, either you go home or get in the back of my car because you're a moron. You have to get out of this. You're too stupid to be allowed to drive.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea of it being -45 before school gets canceled in Regina is just kind of a little bit mind-boggling to me.
But I feel safer driving in that weather. When in Vancouver, when it gets so cold, but it's been raining and it's just sheets of ice. The roads. I've driven to work one morning and the people stopped at red lights, but their cars just kept going, and it's very frightening. Whereas I remember living out east, and it would get really cold, but the driving felt safer.
I think part of it is because that we're used to it back east. We in theory we know how to drive in that kind of weather. At least
I didn't.
Majority of us know how to drive in that kind of weather.
Yeah.
And therefore we're smart enough to know that we don't go out in it, or we drive well when we're in it. The problem with Vancouver is because we get so little of those conditions, we don't have the ability to move the snow off the roads.
We don't have the budget.
We don't have the budget. We don't have the manpower, the vehicles, all that kind of stuff. And the added problem of people not knowing how to drive in it.
No, well, I don't know how to drive when it's not like that. So.
Yeah, there's that too. I've seen people like crash their 4-wheel drive SUVs because they were thinking, why can't I go 60? I'm in a 4-wheel drive. Not how it works, dumbass.
No, you don't.
It's just not how it works. Although I will say the funniest thing I ever saw was a guy when I lived in Burnaby in Vancouver, and we had just had literally 2 inches of snow, and he was shoveling his car out. He had a great big one of those snow plows.
You can drive over it, dude.
No, it was even worse.
Oh.
He was shoveling it out, and he shoveled all the way around his car to give himself a path out of the snow. He was driving a Jeep YJ.
Oh. Oh, no.
So, I mean, at least he was being safe, but still, learn how your car works, dude. Monty sent us his weather. It's -1 Celsius in Tucker, Georgia. So that's not bad, actually.
That's just fine.
That's
it's going to
fine.
get there for us in a few days. It's supposed to snow.
Monty says, you have 4-wheel drive. You don't have 4-wheel stop. Yeah, supposedly, here in the Gibson, Vancouver area, Sunday, it's predicted to be -6 Celsius. A high on Monday of -1, and snow on Sunday.
Yeah.
So I'm declaring a snow day because we're not. I'm not letting you go out in the snow. We'll go walk.
Oh, I love.
We ain't driving in it.
Oh.
No.
Why?
Because the problem is, I know I'm a good driver in the snow.
I am.
It's the other morons that are going to slide into me.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
That's
okay.
who I worry about.
We can walk everywhere.
Exactly.
We're good.
It doesn't say how much snow. It says, I don't see the amount of snow we're supposed to get, but it'll be
Won't be much.
And it'll be gone in a few days.
Then it'll rain.
Folks, so later on the show, in our Starting Up Point Photography segment, we're going to talk about how to take bad street photography and thereby hopefully learn how to take good street photography. But up next, we're going to talk to our good friend Jim Dalrymple of The Loop about Apple earnings and Facebook and FaceTime and a whole bunch of other stuff. All that coming up and much, much more. Stay tuned. This is Your Mac Life. Welcome back, folks. This is Your Mac Life. I am Shawn King. Thank you guys very much for joining me here on this Wednesday evening. As always, joined by our good friend of the Loop, Jim Dalrymple. Jim, how you doing?
I'm doing good. Do you remember last week we were regaling your wonderful audience with stories of driving big old cars down the highway and
Yes.
floating you down? Well, tonight I was listening to Three Dog Night, which
Great
could
band.
have been one of the 8 tracks that we were listening to while we were gliding down the highway. And as a matter of fact, I was listening to them like for the last hour, and the very first song that came on, that's what I thought about. The 8 track cruising down the highway with that 8 track on.
I don't think I ever had a car with an 8-track in the car. I had 8 tracks, but I think for me it was always cassette.
No, my father had a car with an 8-track in it. Man, we were hot. We were the hot family. We had an 8-track in our car.
Where did he keep them?
Well, I mean, you know, they were all over the place, really.
Yeah,
no, not
because they were
actually not my father's car. He kept his car very clean.
Kids don't realize nowadays, but an 8-track, for those folks who are watching the video, the 8-track is about as big as the case I'm showing on screen. They were about, 4 or 5 inches long, an inch thick, and, they were massive things.
Oh yeah, they were huge. And the bad part was if you only wanted to hear one song, you had to listen to all of them.
That's right.
To hear this
That's
one song. So there was no rewinding a song, or you couldn't make an 8-track playlist.
That's right. You couldn't make a mixtape. You couldn't make an 8-track mixtape. That's right. Oh God.
Yeah. Once that song was over, you just popped it out and threw something else
That's
in.
right. So if the second song on the album sucked, you're like, oh shit, I'm never listening to this again.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. So Apple had their earnings announcement yesterday, pretty much in line with the revised guidance. The other ironic thing about it is that no matter what anybody says about it, the New York Times and CNET and a bunch of other folks, that it was a disappointing quarter, keep things in perspective. the past quarter for Apple was their second best quarter ever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And yet
I mean,
everyone is just like, oh, the sky is falling. Oh, my God.
yeah. It's hardly even funny anymore.
I know, really, man.
To listen to analysts and what happened the day after, which would have been today, stories coming out from those major publications saying we see stability in
Yes,
Apple.
That's right. That's right.
Well, yeah, that was there when the guidance happened, when you said that they were doomed.
That's right.
You know, I mean, yeah.
The thing that I find really amusing about this stuff is the fact that Apple says pretty much up front what they're going to do and how they're going to do it, and yet analysts keep saying, well, no, I think I know better, so I'm going to predict this instead. No, just listen to what Apple tells you.
Yeah.
They're very rarely wildly wrong on their predictions, whereas analysts are quite often wildly wrong on their predictions. And why these guys don't get fired is the thing I wish someone would explain to me. How you can be an analyst and have Apple be in what they call in the bear side, in other words, sell all your Apple shares, when Apple is up $10 today per share, and there's no reason to believe that it won't continue. How you still have a job as an analyst not asking me if I want fries with that is beyond me.
Well, I will tell you just anecdotally. A friend of mine, before earnings earlier this week, said, I'm going to sell all my stock. And they had, a good chunk of Apple stock. They said, I'm going to sell because once earnings hit, it's going to be disastrous and it's going to fall. And I said, look, you've known me for a long time. Don't do it.
Yep.
I got a call today.
Was he crying?
Said, no, he didn't sell.
Oh, good.
Said, thank you.
Yeah, it's just then we have these other stories. I saw today someone saying that Samsung beat Apple in sales over the holiday quarter, and somehow intimating that this is a disaster for Apple. Samsung's addressable market is 10 times bigger than Apple's. If Samsung only sold $2 million more of their phones than Apple sold of their phones, Samsung should be embarrassed, not Apple.
Yeah, well, at this point, I think you need to look at company over company. Look at what Apple did against what Apple did. Now,
Yes.
They didn't have a good quarter, but Samsung warned, LG warned, and I stick to what I said before. This is a China issue, not an iPhone issue. So clearly everything else was up. You can go out and beat on Apple if you want, but they made $84 billion in revenue?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
It's kind of hard to add the word doomed to that. Come on.
Yeah. And, same for Samsung. As much as I hate the lying little, when you make billions, you're not anywhere near doomed.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, I was around in the 90s for Apple. I know doom.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, people seem to forget that there was a quarter there shortly after Steve Jobs came back to Apple where Apple lost $1 billion in a quarter. Lost $1 billion in a quarter. So they're well beyond any way, shape, or form of them being in any kind of trouble as a company. This was one quarter where they still made the second best amount of money they ever have. There's no way you could say that there's disappointment or anything along those lines, and yet the media keeps banging on that drum as if somehow it's going to be true at some point.
There can't be. There can't be any kind of disappointment. I need a beer.
Obviously. We can all hear you digging away for that beer.
And just in case you're wondering, this is not the first one I've tried.
And the other thing that Apple announced was that everything else was up. Services revenue. Services, someone said, if Apple Services were a separate company, first of all, they made $40 billion last year in services. Apple would be in the Fortune top 200 companies.
Right.
Mac sales were up 9%. Wearables were up 9%. Profit margin up to 38%. Services profit margin 63%. Everything is going well. They sold more Macs. They sold more iPads. There's nothing. And keeping in mind, Apple said their year-over-year sales in China were still up year-over-year.
Yes, exactly.
They were down from what they expected, but they were still up over last year.
Yeah.
God damn it.
Now, I mean, this goes back to what we talked about a few weeks ago. Does Apple need to do some things to make sure that upgrades and stuff? Yeah, sure, yes. This is the time that they really need that to take effect, though, because they had a great year up until the last quarter for iPhone. And I'm only talking about iPhone here. They had a great year overall for everything else. So those people that are predicting doom, they always predict doom.
Let's move on then. FaceTime did what FaceTime does and got caught for it, as FaceTime often does. Apple has since, for those folks who aren't up on it, FaceTime is basically paying people to install software through the back.
Whoa.
What?
FaceTime?
I'm sorry. We'll get to FaceTime. Facebook is paying people to install software through the back door, not through the Apple Store, as Apple mandates companies do. FaceTime was using their internal permissions from Apple to get people outside of the company to install software, and Facebook was paying them for their data, for their email chat transcripts, for their photos, for location data, all that kind of stuff, in a way that can only be described as utterly sleazy. Apple then turned around today or yesterday and said, okay, Facebook, we're revoking, it's called an enterprise certificate. We're revoking that,
right.
And all your internal apps that you use for testing or for whatever it might be are now broken, and Facebook can't use those apps. Talk to us about what your feelings are with regards to Facebook doing this and Apple's response.
Well, I'm shocked that Facebook would do this.
Shocked, I say.
Shocked. Whoever else in the chat room is shocked, please, come with me on this journey of shockedness. Did we expect anything less?
Yeah, exactly.
No. I mean, Facebook does what Facebook does, but look at Facebook's earnings.
Yep, they were up today.
Yep. So what does that say?
Yep.
Now, this isn't the beginning of Facebook's problems. We're coming towards the end of Facebook's problems, and they're still profitable.
Yep.
So I said it before, Facebook isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
So it's going to stay where it is. They're going to do what they do. They get caught. That somebody from Facebook, a Zuck or somebody else, called Apple and said, "Oh, we're sorry, and we'll do better." And
it's the same old.
What does it matter? Maybe Apple won't let them in. It doesn't matter. Facebook will find another way, like they always do, to get your data. But the interesting part I find about this is that supposedly they also caught Google doing the same thing.
Yes, Facebook was not the only one abusing Apple's system for distributing employee-only apps to sidestep the App Store and collect extensive data. Google has been running an app called Screenwise Meter, which bears a strong resemblance to the app distributed by Facebook. Google was inviting users aged 18 and up, or 13, if you're part of a family group to download the app by way of a special code using an enterprise certificate. Do you think Apple will come down on Google as hard as they did on Apple or on Facebook?
I think they will.
I don't think they will.
No, I think they will. I think they have to. They've already set the precedent.
Yes, but look at it from the point of view of the way things went. They set the precedent from the point of view of Facebook didn't come out and apologize immediately after TechCrunch posted the story. Google did. Google came out and said, oops, our bad. This was an accident. We didn't mean to do it. And that's all bullshit. We all recognize that.
Yeah, well, I mean, and Google came out and did that after Apple took away the enterprise certificate from Facebook. So,
that's right.
Yeah, you know.
But I don't think they're going to penalize Google because of the apology.
No, I think they will. They have. They're either going to penalize them or make them stop.
Yeah. Oh, they'll certainly make them stop. Yes. So
Google, one or the other.
Google has said they're going to stop doing it. So they've taken that away from Apple. The only other punishment Apple can actually do is take away that enterprise certificate listing. And that would make all of Google's internal apps break as they have done with Facebook. And I think we're going to hear through the grapevine in maybe, I'd say before the weekend, if not by next Monday, that Apple has reinstated the enterprise certificate for Facebook. I don't think this is going to be a long-term thing.
I don't think so. I agree with you. It's going to be a short-term thing.
If Apple won't treat this seriously, if Apple won't punish these vendors in any kind of significant way that actually hurts them, I don't even know if Apple can do it, then doesn't it put their protestations about data privacy into question?
No, it does not.
Why not?
Because
Apple's just paying lip service if they don't actually stand up for their own users.
Wow. This is okay. Well, then they're doomed. let's just go with that and say that they're doomed. You know, let's just forget everything else. And no, look. First and foremost, Apple's privacy statements are about Apple as a company. They say that your information and your data is private.
Yes.
And they have, in these two instances, rooted out two companies that have been abusing that and have taken steps to correct it. So if this was coming directly from Apple, where all of a sudden Apple was caught like mining data and selling it, I would say, oof, boy, that's bad. Then we could use the word doomed, because then you wouldn't be able to believe anything that Apple said. But that's not what happened. So the fact that Apple has taken steps to punish the companies as far as they can punish them. It is their platform. They can do whatever they want. And they have taken their certificate away. So I don't think that says anything about Apple's. Are you having a tea?
Water.
I'm having a refreshing beer.
Lucky you.
So I don't think that has anything to do with Apple and their commitment to privacy, because that's a company-based thing.
I think part of the problem is that Apple can't really do anything to Google and Facebook.
Well,
there's no way they're not going to pull all of their customer-facing apps off the store. They're not going to ban the Facebook app off of iOS. They really don't have a whole lot of teeth to bite back with.
Well, let's be clear. The apps that are in question here are developer, like company apps.
Yeah.
They aren't the public apps.
True.
So they did what they could to stop that, because it's not customer facing. Because I think any customer facing app, they would have caught that in the review process.
Yes.
You know, so those two companies did what they normally do. Again, I'm shocked that they did it. And I'm sure that your listeners are shocked that they did it.
You know what? Part of it is that you can't expect anything but rat-like behavior. And that's exactly what this is. This is just Google and Facebook acting the way Google and Facebook act. It's what they do.
Right. Exactly.
And for better or worse, we've come to a point where we kind of have to expect this kind of stuff from them and just go, oh, you kids, you crazy kids, stop doing that kind of stuff, which is really unfortunate.
Well, that is basically it.
Yep.
You know, I mean, you've got it there, but is there anything else Apple can do? Does do the apps of those two companies, customer facing, break any of the rules? No, is the answer. So if they don't break the rules, Apple has to look for something else. Yeah. And they did, and they took action where they could. And you have to commend them for that. But it has nothing to do with Apple's commitment to privacy. As a matter of fact, I think it bolsters Apple's commitment to privacy because they're not doing the things that these companies are. Imagine how much information Apple could get if it did do that stuff. They could get so much information; it would just be incredible.
If Apple,
don't want it.
If Apple acted the way we allow Facebook and Google and Amazon to act, they'd be in such a better position with their customers as the product. They could get so much data out of us because we use our iPhones for so much stuff. They would be better off from their point of view.
Absolutely. Well, they would be making billions more.
Yeah, exactly. And so you've got to at least commend Apple for whatever steps they can make to preserve whatever data privacy they can, keeping in mind they still have to act with these other bad players who seem to refuse to want to play by the same rules.
Well, I mean, it's clear that they don't. Yep. And they've been caught. So, of course, they're going to apologize. What else can they do?
Yeah, that's right.
You know, but the phone call, that the phone calls were going back and forth across Silicon Valley for the past couple of days between all three of those companies.
This is the time when I especially miss Steve Jobs because I just imagine the phone call he would have had with Mark Zuckerberg. That would have been hilarious because Zuckerberg wouldn't have gotten a word in edgewise, and all he would have heard was just a screaming and cursing.
Well, and Zuckerberg's balls would have shriveled up into his body.
I was on a call. I was near a phone when Stephen P. Jobs, called up a very well-known tech columnist and chewed him out for a good 5 minutes. The tech columnist could literally not get a word in edgewise as Steve Jobs screamed invective at him for 5 minutes and then said, "Have a nice day," and hung up on him. It was the funniest thing I'd ever heard.
And welcome to a conversation with Steve.
Exactly.
It's not actually a conversation. It's a lecture.
That's right.
And that means that you don't get to say anything.
Yep, exactly. You just have to sit there and listen.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Apple itself got itself in a little bit of hot water with this FaceTime bug. Really interesting, odd little bug. Surprised it hasn't been found up till now. Apparently it was some 14-year-old kid who discovered the bug, and his mom, who's a lawyer in California, tried to report it a week ago, according to reports. And now the Attorney General of New York State is investigating Apple over this issue. Is this a tempest in a teapot? Is this just a regular everyday bug, or do you think this is something that really matters to the world at large?
Okay, let me preface this by saying I'm not trying to protect Apple here in any way. This is an awful bug. This is awful, awful, awful. The fact that you can listen in and see somebody even though they didn't pick up the call, that is awful. And people should be pissed that this happened. Now, talk to any developer and they will tell you bugs happen.
Yep.
This is a bug. This is not something intentional that Apple did like Facebook and Google did. They intentionally did that. So is it bad? Yes. Was it bad for Apple? Yes. Is it intentional? No. Something happened in the code and it allowed people to get around the fact that you didn't answer your FaceTime call. So, I wasn't going to answer your FaceTime call today because I was afraid that you know. But I think that people need to look at what happened. And again, what did Apple do to solve the problem? They took all of the FaceTime servers offline.
Yep.
So that you couldn't activate the bug even if you tried because it was gone. So, yeah, I kind of feel like I'm bashing on one side and defending on the other, and that's not really fair to what I'm trying to say. If Apple got caught doing something wrong, then they should be crucified for it.
Yep.
At this point, they should be embarrassed that this bug got out there.
Do you think that one of the issues I had with this was just the confusion that everyone thought this was a big deal? And for me, my perspective is I never get FaceTime calls to begin with unless I've set it up ahead of time with somebody. I don't get random FaceTime calls from friends, family, even complete strangers for that matter. But I do know that if you don't answer a FaceTime call after it's about 30 seconds, the call drops, right? So if anyone actually did this to you, you'd only hear 30 seconds of whatever was going on. I'm not trying to downplay this, but it doesn't seem to be that big of a deal. I don't think, I could be wrong, FaceTime is that popular to begin with, that this even would have affected that many people.
Oh, I do think FaceTime is very popular. I really do, especially internationally.
Yeah.
So when I talk to developers a lot in Germany or, anywhere in Europe, really, we will talk over FaceTime as opposed to cell because it's so much cheaper and the audio quality is actually better. So I think FaceTime is very popular.
So do you think that the New York Attorney General, New York State Attorney General going after an investigation into Apple over this and how long it took them to react to it is a fair investigation?
No. I mean, it's if he's going to investigate Apple over this, then he should just shut down Google and Facebook.
That's the thing that got me too. Was that here were they, threatening to investigate Apple over this that Apple immediately didn't fix, but immediately stopped the problem from happening less than 24 hours later, and yet Google and Facebook have been doing this shit for years.
Yeah, and
I haven't heard about any New York State Attorney General investigating Google and Facebook.
Well, I think a lot of this is I don't know if it's political. That's probably not the right word. I think a lot of it is the big name. Apple is a big name, and they can, if they launch an investigation, even if they do, I don't think much will come out of it. But I think it's more a headline grab than anything. Myself, I mean.
But wouldn't there be bigger headlines going after Facebook and Google?
Well, everybody's gone after Facebook and Google.
Kind of an easy target, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean.
So you don't think that this is a black eye for Apple in the point of view of it shakes your faith in the security of the iPhone?
It is a black eye for Apple. Yes, absolutely. There can be no doubt about that. It is a black eye for Apple. Does it shake my faith? No. because this was not an intentional act. And I think that's what everything to me comes back to is, okay, Facebook got caught just this week. Google got caught this week. Those were intentional acts.
Yes.
You know, to get not whoever they gave it to, their information. What Apple did was a software bug.
Yeah.
And we both know, and probably everybody listening knows, a developer or 2 or 10. And they will tell you, yeah, bugs happen. They ship with every single release that you get.
Yeah.
Everything. There's a bug in there somewhere. So that to me is what this is. It does not diminish the fact that this was an awful one. So
let's move on to the next story. I thought this was kind of funny. Another Apple engineer has been accused of stealing autonomous vehicle trade secrets from Apple.
No, what the hell?
Like, dude, didn't you hear about the first guy who got caught? In the exact same situation.
And this guy was taking pictures.
In front of other people.
Hello?
Other people were around while you were taking pictures, you dumbass.
And what did they call it? A secure area or something?
Well, there's all kinds of secure areas in Apple. You've been on the Apple campus. You
know of course. No.
You know that there are areas that are more secure than others. And
yeah, I take my phone out every time I'm there.
That's right. And you know that you know it says in the door, photography strictly prohibited, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But when employees do it, it looks suspicious because in theory you already know what the rules are, and you know you can't do that. You know, if I'm just a visitor and I put my phone out, yes, your guy is going to go, no, you can't do that. Put your phone away. Oh, they'll tell you ahead of time, no phones in this area. Okay, fine. But this guy's an employee. It wasn't even like he was a contractor that might not have read that section of the contractor handbook. This guy was an employee, and this had happened 6 months ago. That's the part that confuses me, is like, at least know what the other guy did and don't do the same shit.
Well, apparently he didn't listen.
Not the biggest, but one of the concerns I would have is I feel very, very bad for, and there are at least hundreds, if not thousands, of other Chinese nationals working at Apple Park and Apple Campus. This has got to put a cloud over all of them, and unjustifiably so. Would you agree?
Well, sure. I mean, you know, I don't know that. To me, the way that I look at Apple security, which is extremely tight, even though we get, you know, rumors every now and then, Apple security is very tight. And I think Apple security is actually dubious of everybody, regardless of where you're from and how you look and what religion you are and whether you're gay or straight or anything else. I just think Apple security doesn't like anybody. Yeah. They think you're all there to steal shit. So, you know, I don't know. I think from the average person, yes, this may look bad for Chinese nationals, but I think that from an Apple standpoint, they know better.
Yeah. I think these two dummies got caught because A, they were two dummies, and they were looking for jobs from a particular segment that is very popular in China right now. If the Russians were interested in autonomous cars, they very easily could have been Russian nationals that were caught doing this. It's not coincidental that it's Chinese, but you can't paint every Chinese employee at Apple with the same brush. You can paint every stupid person with the same brush.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't apply for a job from America in China and then don't buy a plane ticket to China when you've been doing this stuff. I have so little respect for dumb thieves.
Yeah.
That's all this is. You're just a moron.
Yeah.
If you're going to steal well.
I have no respect for morons.
Just in general.
Yeah. They can't be trusted.
That's right. Exactly.
I mean, they're gonna get caught.
They're just gonna get caught. So don't bother. Just don't bother trying. And if you're gonna do it, be smarter about it. Damn it! Don't book plane tickets to China. At least go through Montreal. Take the long way around. You know. You know what I mean?
Nobody trusts the French either.
I knew you were going to say that.
So,
I knew you were going to say that.
You had to bring it up again.
I did.
Two weeks in a row. You brought up Quebec. I mean, nobody trusts them.
Oh, dear. Tim Cook says Apple plans to participate in the breakdown of the cable bundle. Cook is quoted as saying, Apple's expecting an acceleration of the breakdown of the cable bundle. I think it'll likely take place at a much faster pace this year. This goes along with a tweet I posted. I saw this stat that said 60% of Americans have already cut the cord. That's wrong, isn't it?
Well, I would think so.
That's way too high.
I would think so. I would put it at 15 to 20 at most.
Yeah, at most. Even that I think would be generous. And I don't think that unless Apple is going to do something in 2019 that is well beyond what anyone else is doing right now, all the rumors we've heard about any kind of streaming service from Apple, whether it be a game, you're getting another beer.
Well, actually, I did slip one in before this one, so. and these are not the first three that I've opened today. So I'm ready to talk now.
Yeah, you are.
I'm ready to talk. Let's do it.
That pump is primed, baby. So I don't think that the cord cutters are anywhere near 20%. 6% is just insane. I don't think 6% of the population knows what cord cutting is, let alone is actually doing it.
I think that a lot of people do know what cord cutting is now. And I think that and the reason that I say this is because of the type of advertising that they're doing on major networks, and mostly with Hulu. Yeah. Although Sling has had those really funny commercials on, like, we're slingers, come on over, and the couple thinks that they're swingers and not slingers, and those are really funny. I mean, that's funny shit. I really enjoy that. So I think that people are starting to realize that, and that they can get a lot of what they get from Hulu or, View or whatever it is. So I think it's more widespread than what it was even 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But to say that 60% of the people have cut the cord, I think that's wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tim Cook, I think, is just engaging in marketing speak when he says that Apple will have something, because any of the rumors that we've heard, and granted they can be wrong, is that Apple is just going to give us just another streaming service. It might have different bits and bobs to it, but overall it's going to be Netflix. It's not going to be any different than, functionally different than what Netflix offers. It'll be specific to maybe a subscription base for iPhone users or Mac users, but overall it's going to be the same. And I don't see that as accelerating cord cutting.
Let's not forget that okay, there's two parts about this that I thought about, and even with all the beer, I still remember both parts. The first, shit, I forgot the first one. No. The first, I mean, when you're talking about cord cutting, and I look at my own son, he does not have any type of cable subscription.
Yeah, neither do we.
But he watches most of his stuff on his iPhone or his computer. So, I mean, he's deeply tied into the Apple ecosystem, obviously. But Apple has original content that's going to be coming out. And one thing that Apple has that some of the newer players don't have is a deep relationship with all of these networks and movie studios that others don't have. So could this be another exclusive type thing like they had with music for a while?
Yeah.
You know, there is that relationship that's in there that even Netflix doesn't have. Netflix loses shows and gains other shows. And, you know, there's things that happen. Look at what happened to DirecTV or AT&T. They lost, 297,000 subscribers in the last quarter. That's a hell of a lot of subscribers.
Yeah, it is.
So they are looking at cord cutting as, you know, a physical thing in your home, where I think Apple is looking at cord cutting as wherever you are, because they have the iPhone, they have the iPad.
Yeah.
They're able to look at this a little bit differently. They have the relationships. And, you know, if Tim is saying that now, I think of it more than marketing speak. I think of it more as we're getting ready.
Yeah, but even if they're getting ready for it, do you want to watch a Hollywood movie on your iPhone, even on your iPad? I want to watch it on my television set, and Apple...
hold on. Now, you're talking about me, you know, 50 years old. I couldn't see a movie on my iPhone. I mean, you know, come on.
Yeah.
Of course I do. I want to watch it on my big TV set because that's the only fucking thing I can see now is that TV set. So when you're talking about that kind of stuff, yeah, but we're not only talking about you and I at our age.
Yeah.
We're talking about everybody that's in college from 18 to, you know, all the way up to in their 30s. What do they want to watch? Michael, my son, watches hockey games on his iPhone.
See, that's just un-Canadian.
No, he is still in school. He's like, God, he's probably 6 years into college right now. He doesn't.
Wait, college is only 4 years long, dude.
Well, no, he took his undergrad and then he went back for more.
Okay, good. Okay, I was going to say.
And you know, my daughter got her master's, and you know, they're much smarter than me. Clearly, that is all their mother.
I think it proves they were adopted.
Well, no, their mother is really smart.
She is. She actually is. She's very clever. But I still don't see that. Go ahead.
You're looking at people that don't mind. They don't see it as a sacrifice.
Yeah.
You and I see that as a sacrifice. Like, what? I'm going to watch a hockey game on my iPhone? Hell no. Yeah. I'll wait till I get home and watch it on my, 70-inch TV or whatever it is.
Absolutely.
They don't see it like that. They see it as, this is how I do things.
Do you think this is the year Apple announces a streaming service for whatever, whether it be games or whether it be for TV and movies?
Based on what Tim said, I think that there's a good chance that this is the year that they advance what they're doing in content, in video content. I can't figure out why they haven't already announced some kind of a skinny bundle.
Yeah.
I really can't because everybody else has one, which makes me think that what they're doing or what they're trying to do is big.
Yeah.
So if Tim says this is the year where we see an advance in cord cutting, then look out.
It will be interesting to see how it goes. Folks, I've been talking to Jim Downpour the Loop.
Wait. We can't be done yet. I have one more thing.
Okay, go.
So every day I listen to CBC podcast called As It Happens.
Great podcast.
You know it well.
Yep.
Great podcast. Great show.
Yep.
I used to listen to the show when I was in Canada.
That's right.
They not only it's not just about Canadian stuff. They go around the world. The U.S. They do political stuff. They do non-political stuff. They do crazy shit. I mean, it's wonderful. So today they were talking about the Arctic type meltdown that's happening in the U.S.
Yes.
And it was supposed to be minus 56 it was supposed to be minus 70,
Yes.
70 in some parts of the U.S. today, which is extremely cold.
No matter where you are, that's freaking cold.
That's cold. That is extremely cold. And I can understand the warnings. There were warnings in the news that went out, like, don't go outside, don't do that. The very next segment, they talked to somebody from Winnipeg. And they asked him what the temperature was. And it was minus 56 Celsius.
Yeah.
Which in Fahrenheit is minus 68.8. And that is a regular day.
That's right.
In Winnipeg.
That's right. It ain't special.
There were no warnings sent out to the people of Winnipeg. It was minus 68, let's say 69. It was minus 69 on a regular day. No warnings. Yeah, if you want to go out, go on out. Whatever. You know, no big deal.
It's just Wednesday. That's right.
It's a Wednesday in Winnipeg.
Yep.
You want to go out? It's minus 68. Go ahead. Go. So, not to belittle the problems that those U.S. cities are having right now, but I thought it interesting listening to this podcast because I was chuckling while I was listening to it that this is just another day in Winnipeg.
That's right.
It is minus 68.
We talked about that off the top of the show that they rarely cancel school in Winnipeg and Regina, and those are the two capitals, and it's throughout the prairies in general. They rarely cancel school, and the protocol is to cancel school only when it's minus 45 and below.
Normal day.
That's right. Minus 44, you're going to school.
If they had to cancel school because it was below like minus 50, they would not have school from January to March in Winnipeg.
The joke all of us Canadians have been saying is the American media talks about the polar vortex. We're always joking like it's Wednesday in January. It's just cold. It's just we don't gotta give it a name. We don't gotta call it a polar vortex. It's just cold. That's it's just cold wind from the Arctic. It's not that big a deal.
Now, some of these people have not seen cold like this.
No,
people in Minnesota and those places have seen cold like this. But the fact that the American media is making so much out of this, I'm thinking that's not so bad, really. I mean, that's Winnipeg. I mean, yeah.
I will say, though, I saw this on Twitter, and it's a good reminder to send out to folks. And if you have neighbors, especially elderly neighbors or neighbors that can't get around very well, check in on them in this kind of cold because you don't know if their heater has gone off or if they're not using their heater. And if you can, support, donate clothes or money to your local homeless shelters. There were reports that in Chicago alone last night, 15 homeless people died. They froze to death. They literally froze to death. So if you've got an old jacket, an old blanket, anything along those lines, give them to your local shelter, your local. Find out what groups will take in clothing or donate money to these folks because there are a lot of folks out there. As much as we are joking about this stuff, there are a lot of folks out there who will, and are going to die because of this kind of weather.
Absolutely. And one more thing that I have to say around this, not the cold, but we had a neighbor that was very old. and we hadn't seen her in a while. And I have a friend that's a cop. And I said, what should we do? I mean, we hadn't seen her in a while. He said, are there flies on the windows?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I said, well, no. He said, then she's probably okay. And sure enough, the next day we did see her. But are there flies on the windows?
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah, no kidding.
That's gruesome.
It really is.
He said that's one of the things that they look for when
Sure.
they go to do a check. They look for flies on the windows to see if there's a dead body in there.
And on that happy note, thanks, Jim. Jesus, dude.
Yeah, just think about driving down the 101 in Halifax with your Eldorado playing Three Dog Night.
Folks, been talking to Jim down for the loop at loopinsight.com. Thanks, Jim.
Thanks, Shawn.
Talk to you next week. See you, buddy.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, I definitely would encourage anybody who's got neighbors to, especially again the elderly neighbors. If you haven't seen them, check in on them. Just knock on their door and say, "Hey, just wanted to check to make sure you were still okay, and wanted to know that you were doing fine." So, and it's very important that if you've got any leftover clothing or things along those lines, that you can donate to local shelters. Anything warm, gloves or toques or whatever it might be, please donate. There are a lot of folks who are not going to have a good time of it this next week or so. So when we come back in our starting point photography segment, we're going to talk about yes. In the starting point photography segment, we're going to talk about how to take bad street photography, and hopefully you'll learn from these awful photos. All that and much more coming up. This is your Mac Life. Oh, sorry, folks. Hang on a second. I just got to get Melissa's camera set back up, waiting for her to get settled in so I can get her pretty face on camera. Is that where you're going to sit? Mm-hmm. Oh, is your hair good? I don't know. You don't know? Are you not sure? I think you look lovely. Here she is. Boop. There you go. Oh, yeah, that thing always does this. Hang on a second. I got to fix this. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. This app always does this. When I switch from using the phone to putting it on video.
We have to come up with another way of doing this.
Oh, there are lots of ways of doing this. The problem is they all cost money.
Yeah. Well, okay, we won't. Okay. Not a big deal.
It's less of an issue now, is it? Now that you know it's going to cost?
We want experiences. We want to do experiences.
Is that what we want to do?
Yeah.
Okay. There's your mic. There's my mic. In our starting point photography segment for this Wednesday evening, one of the interesting ways that you can learn about stuff is you learn how to do things well, but you can also learn from doing things badly. And I saw this very funny article about 7 habits of boring street photography, which I thought was kind of fun and interesting. And so we're going to talk about these and show you some examples of the photos. One of the issues that beginners have, and I see this all the time, and it's almost one of the funniest photos that I'll see people do, is they stand too far away. As a beginner, you should focus on getting as close to the thing of interest as you physically can. I call it cropping with your feet. Move in, and then move in further, and then move in further. Get as close as you physically can to whatever it might be, whether that's a flower, a person, a dog, whatever. don't take this shot. I'm just going to show you guys this example that they've posted of being too far away from a shot. And this is a great example of a photographer who I'm going to assume wanted to take a picture of the kid sitting in front of the streetcar. And what happens as beginners, you see a thing, and it's a very interesting phenomenon. You just stop, and you go, oh, that's pretty, and you take a picture from that spot where you first spotted it. This photo is obviously that what they wanted to do was they wanted the kid sitting on the streetcar. But look at all the extraneous stuff around the kid in the streetcar. Focus on the thing that makes that photo interesting to you. And in this case, the kid in the streetcar. Okay, great. So now you can see they physically got room to move closer. Get physically closer. If this is someone you know, you can get very, very close. If this is a stranger, maybe you're not comfortable getting really close to them. But if you're not comfortable getting close to them, it's a simple matter to crop this photo down to the spot you want. So I'm just going to zoom in to the photo and show you what a crop of this photo might look like. It's going to look like crap because of the compression of this, but that's the basic idea, is that you would crop it down to just the kid in the shot, because the other stuff that's in the image isn't important to the image. It doesn't matter to the image. It doesn't enhance the image. All it does is distract from the image. It doesn't make the image more interesting. It makes it, in fact, less interesting. So avoid doing those kinds of things. Avoid doing that thing where you're getting so close or so far away that you lose the reason why you're taking the photo. It's a thing that Melissa and I have talked about many times. She'll ask me about a photo, and I'll say, what's important in this photo? What do you think is the thing? Why are you taking this picture? What's the thing that you think is important in the shot? Same with this photo. This is another example of the photo. And it's tough to tell what the photographer was shooting. Was he shooting the woman in the yellow shoes on the left? Was he shooting the pretty blonde on the right? Was he shooting the striped shirted guy in the middle? What is the reason why you're shooting this photo? Are you shooting it because it's a crowded train platform? Tell me why you're shooting the photo. You're too far away from anything of any interest in this photo. There's no subject of the photo. It's just a bunch of people. A bunch of people not doing anything really particularly interesting either. So why are you taking the photo? Keep that. It's one of the keys that I tell people is think about, before you lift the camera to your eye, before you get ready to push the shutter button, think, why am I taking this photo? What's the reason behind my interest in whatever it is that I'm seeing? If you start doing that, it's interesting. You'll do two things. One, your photographs will get better automatically. But two, you'll actually take fewer photos. And that's an interesting thing that I discovered as I became a better photographer. I take fewer photos than I ever have before, because I'm not trying to capture everything. I'm trying to focus on just certain things. So keep that in mind. Another example, kind of similar to the idea of shooting things that you're too far away from, shooting boring pictures. This, quite frankly, is just a boring picture. There's nothing of any interest in this picture. Now, it might be a pretty girl standing there against that grate and that red background, but it's not an interesting photo. If you know the young lady, then maybe you could get closer. Maybe if you zoomed in to just her hair and her phone. And let me try to do a crop of this just using the browser and see if I can't show you more of what I mean. Maybe this would be a better photo. Obviously, in focus and all that kind of stuff. This to me is slightly more interesting. Not a lot, granted, not a lot more interesting. But this seems to be at least a little more visually interesting than the long shot of her entire body. Again, get as close as you can. Take pictures of things that are interesting. And as pretty as she may be, it's not interesting. It's not an interesting photo in and of itself. There's nothing she's doing that, to me, is photo worthy. Do you agree with me? Can you see a better photo there? Would you have taken this photo?
No, but I'm not going to. Maybe it's some man that took a photo of a pretty girl because he liked the way she looked.
True.
Good for him.
But that being the case, there are better photos of that pretty girl that you could have taken.
Yes, but he might just be doing it in passing and not asking her, just taking it and walking away.
True. But in my mind, that's also I don't want to say it's cheating, but it doesn't seem to be doing her any service from the point of view of creating a pretty image of her, if you know what I mean. That either you're going to show her or not. You've taken a pretty woman, a pretty girl, and made her uninteresting. That's not, to me, that's not fair to her. It's not doing justice to her. Even if you're going to surreptitiously take the photo, you want that person to be seen in their best light, and that photo doesn't do it for me. If I was taking that photo, even if she was a complete stranger, if I knew her, I'd get closer because hey, Susan, would you mind if I take the picture? You look great right there. And then I would get closer to take the picture. If I don't know her, I'm either going to crop into the photo so it has that image, or I'm going to ask her, excuse me, you've got a great face. Would you mind, just stay where you are. Would you mind if I took a photo of you? Don't worry, I'm not going to use it for any...
I think that for me, for street photography, you're doing too much. It's like sometimes street photography is just street photography.
Yeah,
it's just a picture. It could be a very unflattering photograph of someone, but it could just be interesting with their reaction or whatever. Mm-hmm. So I think you're overdoing, to me, I think you're now talking about a portrait photograph. You're not talking about street photography anymore.
That's a great point, because street photography is what you make of it. There are some people who say talking to the person you're taking the photo of is not street photography.
Yeah.
You want it to be completely natural.
Yeah.
But others say the exact opposite, that it's photography on the street, not necessarily spontaneous. You can take portraits on the street if that's what you so choose. There are no rules in that regard to street photography, that you can't talk to the person or that you should talk to the person, whatever you personally feel
comfortable
doing.
But if it's that set up, then to me, in my mind, it's no longer street photography.
Yeah.
So,
and that being the case, and I'm not going to disagree with you, but that being the case, if you're taking a quick snapshot, then at least edit the photo so that it becomes an interesting photo. That photo, in my opinion, was not an interesting photo. If I'm going to present that photo to somebody, I'm going to crop into it so it's just her hands with the phone and her head looking down. Mm-hmm. The long shot wasn't interesting at all. Same with this shot. This is I think what you're talking about. This is a street photo. Hang on, let me just get it all in there. Hang on. This is just a street photo, but it's not very interesting. It's a photo that someone took of a guy walking in front of a blue wall. I don't think this is a good photo. Do you?
No, I can see why someone took it though, and then thought that it might be interesting.
But now we know.
But I think if you got much closer to him, the window is kind of interesting. The aqua color around the doorway is kind of interesting, and he's all in the kind of same colors, so it could be interesting.
I would have waited in this shot, and one of the things about photography is waiting for the shot that you envision. For me, with that pretty blue wall on the left-hand side, I would have waited for somebody with different colors to come by and taking the picture as they were directly in front of the wall. So someone with red or orange or yellow. Yellow would be beautiful up against this wall. And if you want to be a good photographer, you've got to learn patience. Now, patience is hard when you're being a tourist and just wandering around the city, and you've got to get to that next spot by 5 o'clock, or you got to make dinner, or your tour group is moving on. But you try as much as you can to be patient and wait for the shots to happen as opposed to just sort of snapping them. This, to me, the way it's set up now, is not a particularly interesting photo.
I agree with Monty, though. It's kind of I don't find it that uninteresting, that photograph. Composition
is always going to be important, no matter whether you're taking street photos or whether you are taking landscapes or anything else like this. This is just poor composition. They've the picture itself. What would you do? So first of all, do you agree this is not a good photo?
Oh, yes.
What would you do to fix this photo?
I wouldn't have taken it. It's terrible. I don't know what it is.
Exactly. This is bad composition. There's nothing interesting in this photo.
The little girl, it's so unflattering for a little
Yes.
girl. She
Poor
just
little
looks
kid.
terrible.
I would either get down low to her level and maybe shoot that way. Maybe you want to get a picture of the dad with the other kid in the orange shorts walking away. Maybe that's a more interesting photo. This is just a terrible photo. And it doesn't make that little girl, who looks like she'd be a cute, chubby little thing, doesn't present her in her best light, which is, again, unfair to her to take a picture that is unflattering for no good reason.
Well, you would ditch it.
If this was a situation where the little girl was, or the person was doing something horrible and they were angry, yes, then you can take an angry photo. That does justice to the person in the moment of the photo. But this doesn't. This portrays this little girl as unattractive, and that's just not fair to the little girl.
Yeah, throw that one out.
Yes, that's absolutely a garbage photo that you should never have posted. This one is different. This one looks like it could be a lovely photo with better composition. You've got this very pretty woman in the headdress looking at you. So she knows you're a photographer. Either you know her or she recognizes that you're a photographer. If you know her, then again, compose the photo much better. Even in the moment, you can just get down a little bit lower, get her back up against the stone wall with the pigeons above her. There's better shots here. You've got the distracting element of the woman in the back left. You have the distracting element of it looks like some sort of shrine over on the right-hand side. The woman in the foreground with the headscarf on looks like she's got a great face with the sunglasses on her head.
She does.
And this
beautiful color
scarf, beautiful face, even though it looks like she's squinting a little bit in the sun. But that looks like it to be a great face to shoot. Now, she's looking at you. If she's a friend of yours, then pose her better. If she's a stranger, what would you do in this situation? You're taking this picture, and suddenly she looks at you. What do you do?
Oh, I would probably look over my camera and say, "You look so beautiful. Your scarf is so beautiful. Let's take some photos." Because she does look very beautiful.
Assume she doesn't speak your language.
Oh, well. Just to go, "You look so beautiful." I don't know. Use gestures and have your camera and say you got one. Come and have a look, or may I show you, or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. One of the things you would do with somebody is you would point to them and then point to your camera and smile. Always smile.
Oh yes.
And
I always smile.
Well, yeah, you're an inveterate smiler. So. But just make that personal contact with them.
Yes.
To say non-threateningly, I think you're attractive. Would you mind if I took your picture? So you've got to find ways to do that. Either you know where you're going. So, for example, we're going to Portugal, where they speak Portuguese. We could learn the Portuguese phrase for "May I take your photo?" Mm-hmm. Simple as that. You know, if you're going to France, if you're going to Israel, if you're going anywhere, learn those simple phrases. Would you mind if I took your photo? You smile at the person and respect what they say. If they give you the no, don't take the photo.
Of course not.
Walk away. Smile again and say thank you. And again, learn the language. Obrigado.
Obrigada.
Obrigada.
Because I'm a girl, I say it that way.
One of the other things that you have to watch out for as a beginning photographer is over-processing your photos. This photo is just awful from the point of view of the photographer has used every tool in his tool book and has made this thing just look terrible. The young man's skin is orange. The colors are all blown out. They've oversaturated and overcontrasted and just overworked the photo. One of the things I tell beginners to do when they're doing, especially when they're doing it on an iPhone or even an iPad, if you use them like Snapseed or even the native camera app or Instagram or that kind of stuff, you're looking at that screen, and you often don't have your screen set at full color. So the temptation is to overdo something on that small screen. Then when I look at it on a computer screen, I go, "Ooh, that looks terrible." Set your settings the way you like them, and then just dial them back about 25%. So if you're increasing the shadows to 50 and it looks good, drop it back down to 35 or 40. Just dial it back a little bit, and you'll find that your photos won't look nearly as, because your iPhone, because the images are so small, it tends to mask a lot of the issues that you might get with banding and those kinds of things with the iPhone. So just keep that in mind when you're doing your photos, just to back it off if you are using them on your iPhone to edit with Snapseed or the native camera app or Visco or any of the other apps that you have. So keep that in mind. Keep that stuff in mind when you're doing street photography. As Melissa said, there are, as she pointed out, there are several different ways of doing it. What I'm thinking of is, in Portugal, you're going to be I don't want to say, this is not negative, the sneaky photographer.
Why?
Again, not negative.
No, I just mean why?
Because you said you don't want to pose people. You don't want to communicate to somebody.
Oh, no, I'm fine with communicating under certain circumstances. But to me, I thought street photography was that very, wow, look at that crusty old guy over there. He has such a fascinating face, or somebody gesturing and it might come out quite well and you haven't got them to pose. So it's just in that moment of experience and the story.
It can be. It certainly can be. And for me, it's always, I don't have any hard set rules. It's always in the moment. So if I see a couple of old guys sitting on a bench in Portugal, and I look and see that they've got a lovely background, maybe it's the ocean or maybe it's azulejos, the beautiful tiles, I might snap a quick photo, but I'm almost positive I'm going to walk up to them and try to say, would you mind, you great faces, would you mind if I take your photo?
Yes, I think you have to build up to being that confident. If you're a beginner, you have to kind of practice how you're going to do it.
And one of the things that I've said that we're going to do in our starting point photography workshops, something I love doing, is we're going to be walking around Lisbon, or the Vancouver one in September here in Vancouver. We're going to be walking around, and someone's going to say, "Oh, I love that person's face. What a great look, or what a great outfit they're wearing." And I'm going to go up to the person and go, "Hey, we're a bunch of photographers. We're doing a workshop here in Lisbon. Would you mind if we took your photo?" And they're going to say yes or no. And what will happen is I'll engage the person, assuming they speak English, I'll engage the person in conversation while you guys take candid shots from around us. I'll stand back from the person so you can get good shots of them. You and I did it with our photography group in Vancouver down in Granville Island. We saw these two beautiful girls. They were just coming back from
That was Granville Street.
Granville Street. I'll say Granville Street. These two beautiful girls who had just come from the local racetrack where they had their fancy hat day. And the two had they were all dressed up, had these beautiful, cool, funky, they're called fascinators, cool, funky hats on. And I was like, oh, we have to take their picture. So I stopped them and said, "Hey, ladies, we're a bunch of photographers. Would you mind if we took your picture?" And they were like, "Oh, okay, kind of thing." And they let us do it. So that's the kind of thing we'll be doing in Portugal, because it's easier to do that kind of stuff when you're with a group. Hopefully you feel safer doing it that way. Maybe you have more confidence doing it that way. But at the very least, you'll be in a group and not have to worry about someone getting angry or being maybe aggressive or abrasive towards you. Wanted to remind folks, I think Mo did it before he left. I've just started doing a newsletter for the Inside.com folks. Inside.com does an amazing, huge number of newsletters, weekly, daily newsletters. Inside.com is the website. And you can sign up for these email newsletters on an amazing array of topics. As they say, real news curated by real humans. They've got inside Amazon, inside beer, inside Google, not only tech stuff, but they've also got things on photography, on cities, inside Portland, inside Pittsburgh, inside deals, inside Chicago, all kinds of things. But I do the Inside Apple one, which is kind of cool. They approached me about a week ago and asked me if I would take over from the outgoing editor. And once we set the parameters, I said, sure. I've been a subscriber to Inside Apple for quite well since the beginning, and I subscribed to a bunch of the other newsletters. So I knew their style. And so when Austin Smith, the president of the company, sent me a message, I was like, yeah, okay, let's see if we can do this. So it's fun. It's interesting. It's not what I want it to be right now. Right now, it's basically taking a news item, rewriting it, and then linking out to it. So my rewrite is to give you the quick tidbit of the story, the high points, the bullet points of the story. And then you can click on the link and go read the full story, or you can move on to the next one. One of the things I liked about Inside.com when I talked to them was that they don't want their newsletters in general to be just that. They want it to be what they call engagement. I always hate that word. But basically what it is that they're looking for more back and forth between the readerships and of the various newsletters and their authors. Their goal is to have their author of the newsletters be recognized experts in the topic and to be able to communicate back and forth with the people who read the newsletter. And I like that idea. I want that. I want to be able to. I don't want to just write a newsletter. The other aspect of it that we're talking about, and it's not happening just yet. It won't be happening until I get my, my sea legs about all of this. The goal is to start injecting some more personality into the newsletter. They tend to be fairly just the facts, ma'am, kind of stuff. And while that's useful, you can get the facts anywhere. Why are the facts important? That's what I'm interested in talking about. A perfect example is, you may have seen the story today that Bloomberg, Mark Gurman of Bloomberg has reported, it's a rumor, that Apple's going to be doing triple cameras on the next iPhone, along with a 3D camera on the back, and new up. So you're going to see this story everywhere. Everywhere this story is going to be. Cult of Mac and Macworld, and everyone's going to have this story. But it's all coming from just one source. And it's a source that's been inaccurate in the past. So I don't want people to think that when they read these stories, when you see it on Twitter or read it on 15 different websites, that, oh my God, this must be true. I read it 15 different places. Yeah, you've read it 15 different places, but all of that story thread goes back to just one source, just one person. And again, that one person, while his record is pretty good, is not always 100% accurate. So that's the kind of stuff, that's the kind of, as they call it, color I would like to install in the newsletter. Let folks know that this is why this news is important, or this is why this news isn't important, to give folks more of an idea of what's going on. Monty says they need an app kind of like Flipboard for all the inside content. I don't think they're going to do that, Monty, because they're a newsletter company. They believe in email newsletters. That's where they're focused on. From what I don't know anything about their business development, but they are very strongly email newsletter oriented. So I think they're going to stick with that for a while. But I agree. I think a Facebook thing might be kind of visually more interesting, if nothing else. MacMan, speaking of the C, and he states from DJI. Now, I heard back from them they've gotten all the data, and I sent them an email on Monday going, hello. We have found out, though, that our home insurance won't cover the drone. So it means that Visa, in theory, will cover the drone. I think we're going to go the Visa route to cover the drone, because Visa will just pay it out, whereas DJI, you get 2 incidences a year with DJI. So I'd rather hold, and those are for 365 days, whereas Visa's thing is only for 90 days. So once the 90 days is up, we lose the ability for Visa to pay it out. If we use the DJI insurance, then we only have 1 more incident in a calendar year. I'd rather hold on to those, especially because I don't think it's going to cost us anything to get Visa to replace this.
There has to be some sort of a repercussion, though.
Yeah, you keep thinking you're suspicious in that regard.
Yeah. No. Well,
They're not going to do it. They're not going to tear your card up. They're not going to charge you extra. They're not going to do it. This is what they offer. MacMan, confident in your flying skills? Yeah, I'm confident in my flying skills in general, in the basics, up, down, back, forth, side to side. Our son Damon is an amazing drone pilot, and he can do things that I'm nowhere near yet ready to do with the drone. But for the basic stuff, the videos you've seen me post up on YouTube, which I think are pretty good, I'm very confident with those. The thing that I want more confidence in is the more cinematic shots, the more shots with more movement rather than just up and down and back and forth, more circular shots and things like that I still need to get more practice on. So hopefully we'll get Visa to get us the drone before we go to Portugal. The nice folks at Zag.com, they are now owners of Mophie. Mophie, I remember hearing about it at Macworld Expo, whenever the company started, maybe 10, 15 years ago. And they gave me one of their Mophie battery packs for, I'll say the iPhone 4. I don't remember exactly what it was. In those days, my iPhone use meant that my iPhone was probably dead by noon. I used the iPhone so much and in so many different ways. And the batteries were a lot smaller, too. So having a Mophie battery pack was a huge godsend for me. I traveled a lot more. I went more places, so my phone wasn't always plugged in. Over the years, as I've gotten more sedentary in front of the computer, less traveling to Macworld and things like that, my need for a battery pack has been lessened. I don't need it on the motorcycle. I've got a power port on the motorcycle, so when I rode the bike, I would charge it up while I was riding. Well, when we're in the car, we've got ports to charge our phones in the car, so I didn't need a battery pack. But the folks at Zag, when they started giving us prizes, said, "Did you want a battery pack?" I said, "Sure." So they sent me the iPhone 10 battery pack, the Juice Pack Air Slim Protective Battery Case. Well, slim is I don't know if I'd call that slim. That's fairly thick. The case material is nice. I like the way it feels compared to if you have an iPhone case from Apple, I've got the Product Red case from Apple. It's a little less a little less grippy than the iPhone case. The feel of it is still good. It's got a very nice chamfered edge on it, on this front edge. So it feels the same as the iPhone case. Very well done, very well manufactured. Very light, too. I remember the original Mophie cases feeling like they weighed a pound. They didn't, but it felt like they were very, very heavy. And they added a lot of bulk and weight to your iPhone. These ones are not much heavier than a regular case, which surprised me considering the 30-hour battery that it's got inside of it. They've made some changes from previous Mophies. One of the changes they made was the battery indicators in the back, and you can push this button on the back. You see how it lights up to let you know how much charge is on the phone. Those lights light up as it's being charged off the lightning port in the bottom, too. It has two little speaker ports down here at the bottom, which is kind of a clever way of getting sound out of the phone when it's in the charger. The lightning port is on the inside of the case. You insert the phone into the case. You take off the top part of the Mophie battery case. Sorry, nose itchy. And then your phone slides into this part, and you put this cap on top of it, and that's got your opening for your camera on your phone. So it's nice in that regard. It snaps together nicely. It doesn't feel like it's going to be loose. It's going to fall off. You've got your on-off switch here. You've got your volume buttons here. Everything works just fine. I mentioned before, this is also a wireless case. So when I'm using this with my Q charger, I don't have to take my phone out of the Mophie case in order to charge it wirelessly, which is kind of cool. You with your phone inside the Mophie case, you just put it on your Q wireless charger, and it charges both the phone and the Mophie case in parallel, so one after the other. The iPhone will charge up first, and then the Mophie case will charge itself up. When the phone is inside the case, it does not draw power from the Mophie battery until you push the button on the bottom. Before, there used to be an on-off switch. Now it's this button on the bottom that lights up the lights is the only thing that will turn the phone on. So you don't have to worry about putting the Mophie case on your iPhone and then at the end of the day needing a charge and realizing, oh shit, I used it up all day long. You can let your iPhone get down to 10% and then turn on the Mophie case, and the Mophie case will charge the battery up. I've used it for a couple days extensively. It always got me through a day. I didn't have any problem doing double what I normally did when I was out and about taking photos, using the internet, playing games, checking email, all the things I would normally do. I did extra on the days I took the Mophie case out and about with me, and never had any problems with it. Never worried about running out of juice at the end of it. One of the other issues is the same with the iPhone, is there's no headphone port. Obviously, the iPhone doesn't have a headphone port, so therefore you're not going to get that as an issue on the Mophie case. It still needs the dongle like you have at the end of the with your iPhone, the little headphone dongle that Apple is making us all use. It's expensive, $99, $100 for the case. If you get through a day without your phone getting below, say, 25%, I don't think you'd need a Mophie case. But if you use a phone so much that at 3 o'clock in the afternoon you're down below 50%, you still got 6 more hours of phone use, then I'd say a Mophie case would be great to have. It'd be something that, even if you don't like the bulk it adds, it's a kind of thing you can put into a backpack. You can put into a soft cloth covered case, wherever it is, and just use it as a external battery that you put it on only when you would need it. But I will say it does not feel bad as a case by itself. It does add bulk. There is quite a bit of size here, and there's a little bit of a hump in the back of it, obviously where the battery goes and where this part comes off. But I didn't find it to be really bad. The only time I found it bad was when I was trying to use the iPhone on a Mophie case on anything that required grippy pincer movements. So the thing we have in our car that we use to prop the phone up so we can see the GPS does not grip this case very well at all. The portable tripod I've got right here does not grip this case well at all. I don't know if it's a matter of the case being thicker than what the manufacturers of those kinds of pincers were expecting, or whether it is just too big for those kind of things. So that was a bit of an annoyance, having to take the case off in order to use it with a tripod or use it in the car to use GPS directions. That was a bit of a pain in the butt. Monty says, I didn't know Zag had purchased Mophie. Yeah, they purchased Mophie about, say, 2-3 years ago. They've kept that as a separate entity, though. There's still Mophie.com, and @Mophie is the Twitter name. So they've sort of stayed hands off with the company and allowed them to develop their own products. According to Mophie, it is a Q-enabled wireless power, 30 hours of talk time, 17 hours of web browsing, 19 hours video playback, 86 hours of music playback, low profile design, raised corners, priority plus charge and sync, which I really like. It's the idea that it charges your phone first when it's plugged into power, and then the Mophie case afterwards. I do believe that they have come out, or they will soon come out with versions of this for the iPhone XS, XS Max, and the XR. And obviously there's still versions of this available for the X and the 8 and the 7 and going back that way. So if you're in the market for a well done, classy external battery case, check out the folks at Mophie at mophie.com. You got something to say, lady?
No.
Got an email from our friend Jason Painter in Sydney, Australia. Your idea of variable ring goals based on calendar or day of the week is interesting. I used to never make my move goals on the weekends. I had it set to 4,000 per day, and I would do this daily during the week. Screw you. What?
Go, Jason.
Oh, no. 4,000 kilojoules.
What's
I have no idea.
that?
What's that in calories, man? I would do this daily during the week. I could never build a streak. I estimated I could achieve 3,000 kJ per day in the weekend. That's what it's been for about 2 years. I do well in excess of that during the weekdays. This is my baseline, though, and if I'm having a slow day, like over Christmas, that's still doable. I had a move streak of about 500 days when I was on a plane from the U.S. We crossed the international date line, and it screwed my streak because I lost the day. I was pissed. Oh, man. That would suck, wouldn't it? That's funny. I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought that it would do something like that. That just the date change would mess it up. I'm not worried about the streaks. I don't care about the streaks.
I really have no idea what you guys are talking about. The iPhone exercise movement thing?
Yes, it will track. You know it tracks your circles.
Yes.
Closing your rings. Mm-hmm. It tracks them over time, too. So if you do 3 days in a row or 5 days in a row or 7 days in a row, closing your rings or closing all your rings, it gives you little...
you get medals.
Mm-hmm. Little medals and that kind of stuff. So he had closed them for 500 days. It's a year and a half.
Uh-huh.
Every day he closed them.
Yeah.
And people get very proprietary over those.
So the date line screwed it up and that really pissed Jason off?
Yeah.
Okay.
For me, I don't...
These are first world problems,
really
people.
Absolutely true. I don't care. I don't worry that much. I like when I close the ring. I absolutely like seeing the little fireworks that pop up. But I'm not going to go out of my way to close a ring right now. I might in the future, but right now I'm not. So, for example, today it's Wednesday. I had the Inside Apple newsletter to do in the morning. I've got the show prep to do in the afternoon. I ain't doing no exercise today at all. So on Wednesdays, I'd like to tell my Apple Watch, this is an off day for me. Put me at, what am I at now? I'm at 287 calories. So put me at 300 calories for Wednesdays. And then put me at the usual 700 on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then on the weekend, put me at 1,200. That to me is more value than having the exact same number every single day. That would get me to push more. Because one of the problems that you could have is, say on the weekend, if your goal is 750, and on the weekend you do that first thing in the morning because you've gone and played basketball, maybe you won't do anything else all day. I closed the rings, I can stop now. I don't want to do that. I want to be able. I basically want to get my ring closed at the end of each day, just barely. You know what I mean? Just as I'm lying down, ding, you just another calorie and you're over your... That's what I want to do. Mm-hmm. Not everyone wants to do the same thing, which is why I'm surprised Apple hasn't, after 5 versions of the watch operating system, come up with some way, because you can do it on your calendar, on your phone or on your Mac. I can set a calendar so that I have a recurring event, but that recurring event happens at a different time each day, and it will warn me at... One day it'll warn me at 9 o'clock. The day it'll warn me at 11 o'clock. You know what I mean? So why can't we do the same thing on our watches? It's just a minor annoyance, but it's a major annoyance from the point of view of why hasn't Apple fixed this issue? It seems fairly straightforward by this time. Folks, I want to say thanks as always to our good friend Jim Downpole of The Loop at loopinsight.com for joining us here each and every Wednesday, drinking or not. I want to say thanks to you guys for being tuned into the show, whether you're tuned in live or listening in via the archive. As always, we encourage you to go to the website at yourmaclifeshow.com and subscribe to the show. It's a free podcast, but if you subscribe at the $2, $5, $10, $15 amount per month, we would greatly appreciate that. Plus, you get extra prize drawing entry forms. Also, if you want to get a daily newsletter, weekday daily newsletter of all the top 10 items in the news for Apple, go to inside.com/Apple and subscribe to the newsletter. My wife even subscribed. Even she subscribed.
I did.
She doesn't even like me.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't even follow me on Twitter.
Mm-mm. But I signed up because I'm very proud of you.
Have you read the newsletter?
I've started. Well, I'm very busy at work right now, so
Have you
I've
skimmed over
glanced
it?
Yes.
What does it look like visually to you?
I have to understand why they do different fonts and different thises and that. So I have to get used to it. It's a bit.
So visually, it's a bit off-putting.
I wouldn't go so far. Give me a while.
Okay, I'm just curious. I'm just curious what people think about this. Is like I said, I'm going to be just getting my sea legs with it just for the time being, but hopefully, maybe by the end of February, I'll be able to start molding it into the way that I want it to be, as opposed to the exact same as what it was before. I want to take it in a different direction.
I think that's what they're hoping.
I hope so.
From
From the conversation I had with again the president of the company, Austin Smith, and the editor-in-chief, Lon Harris, they seem to want the same thing. So we shall see, folks. Until next week, I've been Shawn King.
I'm Melissa King,
and you've been listening to Your Mac Life. See ya.
Bye.